Welcome back to the channel. All right, we're continuing on with the top 10s, 15s, so really honorable mention in each class for the month of June. We do this every June, every December. I've been having a blast with this, and this is in lieu of the monthly tier list that we've been doing for over 4 years. Now, what you're looking at on the screen right now is actually my Discord server's rankings. Every time we've been doing this, at least to the best of my memory, ever since we started this, they have been pulled, and it's been really, really cool. Because I'm so pressed on time, did not have the ability to facilitate this, and Egatron has stepped in and done it for me. Aiden, thank you so much. That's why his logo is right up there. It's phenomenal, and thank you to everyone who voted. Now, we're going to cut very quick to the scoring explanation for myself and the MCoC Illuminati, what we go through every single month when we do the big revamp, all the ways these champions are graded and scored and then compiled and put into the tier list. That is a spreadsheet. Those spreadsheet wizards have made phenomenal, where you can configure it if you like Battlegrounds, War, ease of use, the whole thing. It's phenomenal. And this way you can understand it, because I will be using those terms frequently throughout the rest of this video. All right, let's cut to that. If you're not interested in seeing it, or if you've already seen it, you can go to the timestamp in the description, jump straight to the ratings. All right, let's jump into this very quickly. And remember, if you've already seen how this format works, go ahead and just jump to the timestamp that I've listed in the description. You can get right to the rankings. Now, this is how we've broken down every single champion, rated them. This is when I talk about the thoroughness, the hours, the debating, going back and forth. It is a lot of fun, but this is how we do it. And then this is how they're all scored. And every month that is presented in the general tier list. We've been doing this for, I think, 4 years now. So let's go over this, and this is how they're going to be listed. Now, there are four categories. They're not equally weighted, but there are 4 general categories. There's ease of use, Battlegrounds, War, and General. And then General is an added up score of those other 4 categories. And we'll talk about them when we get to them. Ease of use, this is worth about 3 points. This is the epitome of it, is Sunspot. I know often we think of like our parry heavy champions, like an Archangel being the easiest to use. And I'm not saying they're not, but we are including champions like Sunspot, phenomenal champion, not a knock on him. And in fact, I know many players like the spreadsheet because they can configure it for ease of use, even though I always present it every month without ease of use. For the sake of these rankings here in June, we will be including ease of use. Moving on to Battlegrounds, this is worth 10 points. And you see my Battlegrounds rankings every single month. We've been doing that since before Battlegrounds even came out. We're now adding even the scores so you can see them. Photon is a 10 out of 10 in the dual threat category. She's a very good defender, a menacing defender. There are some very good counters for her, though. If you pull Photon, someone pulls a Mantis, you throw her on attack, and there's a lot of meta defenders that she is very, very good for. So she's the perfect example of a 10 out of 10 in Battlegrounds. Moving on to War. War is in an interesting place, and I won't take too much time for this, for that discussion in this. But in War, the relevance really there was outside of sagas, outside of metas and these sorts of things, attacker tactic, defender tactics. Who are the champions? Who are the few champions that when you're in tier 1, you're 2, you're really pushing, I don't know, tier 3. Who are the champions that are almost always someone you're looking to assign? Yes, there's going to be times and metas and defenders, things like that can X them out. But some champions just flat are more usable than others in War, and Tiger is definitely the 10 out of 10, at least for now, in War. That's an example of that. Now, moving on to General, you have a total score of 15. This is the biggest because I know not everyone does War, I know not everyone does Battlegrounds, but everyone plays the game. And this is broken down into long form. You can get up to 3 points for this. This is the most heavily weighted on Necropolis. We've had like all the various of Legends content, then of course Grandmaster's Gauntlet, and then now there's the EOP and things like that. All of them are going to be presenting different challenges, defenders, node sets, trap nodes, and those sorts of things. And then of course, like in EOP, there's even our hashtag objectives and things like that. But there are champions that we can say, especially looking at Necropolis, just appear to be better in long form than others. You think of your Kate Bishop, Wong, Aegon, Shuri, those sorts of things. Champions have all been rated across there for their ability to ramp up and then maintain that ramp. You think of like Dani Moonstar, she can do massive damage after a ramp, but it starts all over. Very rarely you're going to be using her for your long form, maybe an EOP sort of thing. Probably not in the Necropolis or the next version of Necropolis when it comes out. Moving on to flow. Spider-Ham is the epitome of this. In fact, it's when I came up with the term flows, when I first covered him years ago when he came into the game. I'm going to read it to you. How well do a champion's abilities and specials fit together? How easily does a node or a defender or an AI throw off the attacker? How relevant is that in today's game? Example is Spider-Ham is a 5 out of 5. I literally came up with this term and this definition because it is different than ease of use. With Spider-Ham, you need his power sting, he's got it. He can apply them without even needing power. You need a taunt, he's got one for you. You need an evade, it's available. All of the specials do something, they help him out. You land the heavy to keep his spider nonsense high. You gotta play him well. I don't have him as a 3 out of 3 ease of play. He's high though. But it's his flow, in my opinion, his flow and his budget and his meta that make him so incredibly powerful. Moving on to budget. This is also worth 5 points. How many relevant abilities and immunities are in the champion's kit? Utility brought to a fight, and also damage is part of this. So yes, you may not have the most utility, but if you got enough damage, you're gonna get at least a decent score of this. Hercules, right? You want him to crit? He can crit. You want big crits? He can do that too. You want to go unblockable? He can do that. Yeah, you gotta get close to death, but still, he can do it. He can just do so many things. He has relevant resistances. He's a phenomenal champion. His synergies are great. 5 out of 5 budget. Everything that could be packed into one single champion and still be in this game is there. 5 out of 5 budget. There are a few other 5 out of 5s, but Herc is my favorite example of it. Meta, this is the one that we really need to stay on top of. Really, when we're talking often, if you see me promote or demote a champion, or when I come out a little bit like hesitant or conservative on them when they're new, it's their meta score that's quote unquote holding them back or moving them up, because I'm just not sure how they're going to be used. And then as time shifts on, some champions become better in the meta and some become worse. Like CGR's meta score has actually gone up as late. We've talked about that a lot on this channel. And if you think about Hulkling, I actually talked about on stream today, he came out as a penny counter. But he was so good across so many ways, and some of it's flow and some of it's budget too, that he's not just for your tech champions. Like if you think about future Ant-Man, he happens to have a Pierce. So a lot of your tech champions who are problematic, Iron Man Infinity War is coming back. Well, Hulkling can go unblockable. But he's also then good outside of that. He's got his resistances, or I'm sorry, he's got his immunities and those sorts of things. But Onslaught comes out very problematic defender, no like seemingly hard counters outside of Havoc necessarily, but people were using Hulkling for Onslaught. He's just so meta relevant. This can shift. This is the one that we're always keeping our eye on and why champions get promoted and demoted. Hopefully you have a really good understanding of how the tier list works, the scoring and all of that. We're going to quickly go over my Discord server's ratings. Like again, thank you to everyone who voted. You can see, looks like a maximum of 21, maybe 23 different people voted on this, maybe even more. So I really appreciate Aiden detailing it the way they did. And we're just going to kind of start at the bottom. I'm going to kind of briefly talk about a few things that are going to be very different from my ratings, mine and the MCoC Illuminati ratings. First one is the placement of Dust. I think a lot of this is due to her being so new. I think a lot of people probably don't even have her, or as we've talked about in some of these other videos, you know, they don't have the 7. Maybe they've got the 6, but they're like, do I really want to rank her up, take her up all the way, use my rank up resources? And I think it may be smart, depending on their account, those sorts of things. I mean, one, if they're having fun, of course it's smart, but it might be a smart use of resources. We'll talk about that later in the month when we're talking about the best champions to ascend and those sorts of things. But she is fantastic. Magneto Red also there. Interesting to see him so low. I personally think that makes a ton of sense. I get it. Danny Moonstar, I am very disappointed in all of you. No, just kidding. But she is phenomenal. I get it. She's not for everyone. And but I think for general questions, she's phenomenal. You know, we've shown her Battlegrounds and more. Omega Red, that's actually a surprise for me, but I respect it quite a bit. My own personal ratings, kind of similar. And then you see Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Nightcrawler. This is pretty high, but I think again this makes a lot of sense, right? People love, one, the damage, two, the show, right? X-Men was amazing, and then 3, and I think this is maybe something that I just don't rate high enough. And you, the viewer, tell me, is Nightcrawler's ability to get out of very tricky special animations, right? With his whole like not being able to be hit while evading and those sorts of things, that is very powerful. And it might just be something that I am not rating high enough. And so if you disagree with myself and the Illuminati, let us know in the comments. And it's definitely something we'll consider, maybe about getting him promoted in the general tier list. All right, those are my servers rankings. Now let's go ahead and get to mine. All right, number 10 on my rankings and MCoC Illuminati is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. That's very clear. It's on the list, right? She's actually a massive tie for 10th, which, given our scoring system, it makes sense, right? Just 1 point really can make a massive, massive difference. But I do quickly want to mention the honorable mentions of Danny Moonstar and Professor X. A lot of the folks on the Illuminati like Professor X a lot. I think I'm also one of the very vocal Professor X fans, something like that. I rate him so highly. We see him from time to time. I mean, I think it was William of SSX fame and Battlegrounds fame using their Professor X. Phenomenal, phenomenal champion. You don't have to use him with power backs in war. Yes, a lot of the eye-popping stuff and making stuff we see is with Professor X in war with power backs or some questioning with power backs. I've done it myself on streams and videos, but I've also used him in war without. He is a fantastic champion, and very honestly, if mine was Awaken my 7-star, I know he'd be a rank 2 by now. I do value the Awakened ability quite a bit for my purposes and my uses. I think he's a phenomenal champion and arguably really could be in this top 10. And then the other one is Danny Moonstar. I'm not going to belabor because this is the honorable mention portion of this video. She's phenomenal, right? When that buff went out, or we got to first test the buff, I was like, let's ask for a little bit more. Kabam actually did give us a little bit more. And then I covered the buff itself. And I was like, guys, we got a phenomenal champion here. I've been using her in Battlegrounds all over the place, questing. And you've been telling me how many things you've been using her for. And then also we've seen some of those just like super high skill Battlegrounds players, Bitter Steel, Andrew the Rough, Forgotten, I believe, and more, using her to take out phenomenal, difficult defenders, and then taking her places that I didn't think she'd be able to go. So that's been amazing. Now, Negasonic Teenage Warhead. A lot of you know I call her Warrior for some reason. I think it's because of the Mutant Ninja Turtles. But anyways, then for these class rankings, what I'm going to talk about is what really makes them unique. And this champion, wow, could not be a better starting point for what makes them unique. You know, there was the quote on the Kabam live stream that like she kind of turns off every threat that skill defenders have presented, right? And I'm paraphrasing that a little bit. It's not an exact quote. And she really does do that, right? Every single hit has non-contact. So all the contact back mechanics we fight with skill champions and in nodes and things like that too. Or a champion like, Electro or things like that. She's just going to get around by playing. You basic 5-hit combo over and over and that sort of thing. Your damage won't be that great in that scenario. And then that means she handles Purify as well too, right? Because even her stun is a passive. And I did the video on her showing what it enables you to do is I think it was like medium, and then go into a whole new combo. So you can really ramp your combo, get going. Her damage, in my opinion, is actually very respectable. One of the reasons why I'm very comfortable with her in the game, with all of that massive utility, is that she's not also the fastest option for your fights like Bullseye, Korg, or Tuma, or Killmonger. There are other champions that already exist in the game that maybe aren't as safe for those fights, but they're faster. And I love that balance. I love that. And I love that they put that in the game for us, right? I think that adds to the fun. It evolves the relationship between skill and mutant. I was worried about her when I first heard about her. And then I spoke to some of the Kabam designers and game team. They explained, they're like, we hear you. We thought about it. I think you're going to be pretty happy. And they were 100% correct. She's a fantastic addition to the game. I think she's probably just going to become more valuable, and then it's going to be about your account. If you're like, no, I enjoy taking bullseyes with my Sunspot and my Bishop, you probably have no use for her. And that's kind of actually where I've ended up. But as questioning and things like that go on, there's a good chance I'm starting to use her. Now, let's move on to who else she's tied with at the 10th spot. I feel like this man needs literally no introduction. It's really a testament to how powerful he is in his matchups that he's even still on this list, right? Because he came out and he was just dominating #metal. Helped us get through quests that we couldn't have previously had not been able to get through. We were now being able to take these robots and tech champions. We could do full mutant teams and bring him along, or, a white Magneto, who's also very good, not gonna be on this list, and be like, I'm good now. That 1 or 2 fights along the way, these metal champions or these tech champions that my mutants were going to struggle with, this man handles for me. Well, Kabam did a really nice job. They didn't nerf him, They nerfed him via making the game stronger through power creep, and something that we started talking about a long time ago on this channel. It was quite a while ago, and I know a lot of people were very resistant to it. Was, yes, I recognize the power of Magneto, but we're starting to notice often we don't want to bring him in a quest because we're like, or to a war team or something like that, because we feel like we can get away with using someone else for that fight, and then that champion we're bringing in lieu of Magneto is now taking other fights for us. And that has consistently happened more and more and more. And I'm not saying Magneto has become niche. What I'm saying is that often, I mean, again, guys, he's rated tied for 10th in the whole class, in a very strong class. So we're not saying he's bad. He's very good. But what I'm saying is often we're finding reasons to bring in other champions and rely on Magnetos for those metal matchups less. Let's go ahead on who they're also still tied with. There's a 4-way tie at the 10 spot. At number 10 with those bangers of Negason and Teenage Warhead and Magneto. None other than Iceman. I covered his buff at CCP, I believe, and then also when I went live. Phenomenal champion. Absolutely loved him. Really happy with that video. I have mine at rank 5 and Ascended. Did that almost immediately or very soon thereafter. The damage is actually, I think, very respectable. Yes, he doesn't always make my Battlegrounds deck now. I will fully admit that. But I do sometimes get caught by someone else's Iceman, and if there's evade or something like that involved, he's great for it. Remember, he just shuts it down. This isn't like an ability accuracy thing. This isn't like slow, right? Where we're seeing champions immune to ability accuracy or nodes or things like that. He's just shutting it down, right? So it could even take Nightcrawler or things like that for you. And it's not a big sacrifice on his damage to keep it refreshed with the SP1, which I really love. When you don't have to choose too much between exercising the utility of the champion and their damage. And then, of course, the only champion in the game immune to Nova Flame. Is it massive? Are you often taking Human Torches with your Iceman? No, but it is kind of cool. It's a nice nod, I think, to the character himself and all of the immunities. Iceman's a champion that I don't see necessarily moving down, but this could be an example where the meta score of Iceman could move down as the game continues to progress if he does not come out as a 7-star. Doesn't mean the champion's any less strong in the vacuum on their own, but as we approach the end game and we continue to evolve and get into an Act 9 and these sorts of things, and the 7-stars become more and more, not necessarily required, but you're incentivized to bring your 7-stars over your 6. This is a champion that I think people will be reaching for less, and I will be less likely to advise you rank up because there's probably going to be a 7-star who can handle it for you. Maybe not as well as Iceman could if they were a 7-star, but not as well as they do as a 6-star. Dust, number 10. I talked about this briefly when over my Discord server's rankings. I think a lot of why she's higher rated on the Illuminati tier list than she is on the server tier list is the Illuminati, right? A lot of us have her maybe from early access or a lot of high tier war players where they were asked someone in the battleground, like, hey, please rank her up. She's, tactics. She's going to be phenomenal for this option, and this option. So just more awareness of it because of more experience. I think as she continues to become more available in the game through 6-star featured and of course the Titan Crystal and then the basic 7-star, I think you're going to see the community catch on more and more to how great they are. Clearly my server thought she was good, just not quite as good as myself and the Illuminati think. She has a tremendous suite of immunities. She also has a very cool punishment of purifies, but she can also do that her own in her own kit. So I really like that, right? It's not like you have to just go and find these specific matchups. If they don't have that, if the defender of the node isn't doing that for you, she can do it herself. She's really unique in that her SP1 is kind of like her big damage. There's a loop to her, and she's not the fastest champion. I think that's another thing. You're not seeing her on a ton of YouTube videos because she's good in Battlegrounds, and we have her with actually a pretty good score, but it's as a dual threat because she has defensive capabilities as well. She has some non-contact to hits. I really like her. She's a champion that when you see me open up some Titan crystals, yes, I'll be cheering and hoping to awaken my Serpent, and I will definitely do want to eventually awaken my Kushala. And there might be some other champions when I look at the crystal that I call out. And I might call her a very fortunate miss because she's a champion I'd be excited to rank up, and in no way will I be disappointed should I pull her. Fantastic way to end off the 4-way tie for the 10th spot. Coming in at number 9 is Havoc. Like, if you like money in the bank, like if you invest your money in like fixed rate CDs, this is your champion. He is just like so solid and has been solid for years. Look at that. February 6, 2019. Came into the game. I remember people like, how are we going to fight this dude? seemed like he was designed to, I think, slow down Ghost and Corvus, if I remember, because it was like anti-crit, and we were just so concerned about it as a defender. And then people kind of slowly started figuring out we got more options. We got these tech champions that weren't doing energy damage and had the armor up and the whole thing, right? But offensively, he just stays relevant. And I've done the video on him. I think I've done a couple now recently. I have mine at 6-star or 7-star rank 2 because I kept pulling from the Titan. And originally I was disappointed. And I was disappointed because I'm like, he's not new. I wanted something new and fun and exciting, right? And then I was like, okay, I'll play him. And Zod in my Alliance 4BGs is a big fan. And I was like, I'll play him. And then I started being like, oh, he's really good. And this is what I mean by like, he's just solid and he won't go away. I've said it jokingly, but I mean it as a compliment. I'm like, he's like a cockroach. Like, you can't kill this thing. When everything's dead, he'll still be alive and doing his thing. Like, he's got some non-contact to hits, and that's become a bigger deal in the game, right? These damage back mechanics. He has the ability to create a damage over time debuff with his heavy. You can throw your SP1 to get more of the damage over time debuffs, but it's also helping your ramp. Your power's gaining as you're fighting. You can go to your special 3 and throw a relatively massive special 3, and if you plan it, then you get a detonation at the end. And then if you really still just need a little bit more damage, there's a good chance by the time you get your special 2, it's now unblockable. This is also not mentioning the massive energy resistance and the immunities. This is a very good champion. I think the only way they start to move down is just because so many champions have come out that are more powerful than him in like certain niches, where it's like, well, you're better off taking up these 5 champions over just like one Havoc, because they're going to be A pluses in a variety of fights, and the game has just evolved that way, where you could rank up one Havoc and do like a B plus in all those fights. If your account is smaller or newer, I think he's a phenomenal rank up for you. My account, it's not one of the biggest anymore. It definitely is not, but it's relatively big. And I find plenty of uses for my Havoc. And no, not just for absolutely destroying Onslaught. If you haven't seen him fight Onslaught, you've got to see my Havoc videos. You're going to have a good time against Onslaught. There's a reason why that Spring of Sorrow Onslaught had an armor up buff. And I'm telling you, it's because of Havoc. Coming at number 8 is none other than Bishop. Bishop is a phenomenal champion. And I will say that right about now, well, even Havoc has the same amount of points actually as Bishop. Bishop, I could see people very much feeling strongly should be like number 5 on this list. And I can't tell you you're wrong. Like I said, there's like 1 point splitting quite a few of these champions. And right now in the game, like literally today, and probably for the last like 3 weeks, Bishop has been one of my favorite mutants. And a lot of that's due to Battlegrounds. But the game's about a lot more than Battlegrounds. One of the things we talked about, and I don't recall what it was, but it was a recent Battlegrounds meta where we're talking about the Shrug. It was a tenacity meta, and I went over the video on like building your deck and giving advice, and we were talking about Bishop, Storm, and Storm Pyramid X. And I purposely didn't give the answer, but I said you should go and you should look and see they don't all handle Purify the same way, right? Some will take just purely a stun and turn it into a passive. Some will actually damage an opponent who shrugs their debuffs, and some will, I think, just damage a skill champion that purifies their debuffs. Don't quote me on all that. You should still go look it up. But the relevant part of this is one of the things that's really unique about Bishop is that he damages all champions that purify his debuffs, and he creates the passive stun on skill champions who purify his stun debuff. It's very, very powerful, and it gives him some universal appeal. He's one of the reasons why I rate him higher than both of those champions. I also know that off his SP1, he lands a lot of debuffs with that Incinerate, right? And then if you're fighting like a Kingpin, I actually prefer that for Kingpins. I throw my SP1. Kingpin just keeps purifying that debuff for me. I'm like, way to go, big fella. You're going to die. And then if you want, especially the 7-star, is one of the really nice things about the 7-star, right, is the crit stat focus. It really helps your crit rating off your special 2. If you get it's like, I don't know, you can get up to like 30 some odd prowesses. I always shoot for 30, and you throw that SP2, and if it crits, it's going to do massive, massive damage. And the thing is, it can do incinerate damage after the SB2 is over, so you're even getting damage on top of that. And then as you get into the signature ability, it can make him a tougher and tougher defender. A lot of people seem to know, like a lot of the Battleground streamers and things I see, they know how to evade that SB2. I know I am not confident in it myself, and I know my Bishop catches people on that SB2 as well. Fantastic champion. I do not see them moving down at all, especially because they are out as a 7-star. Oh, geez. I'm sorry, everybody. I've been saying 9, 8, and now what will be 7. And I'll go back because I always go back and edit all of these videos. It takes forever, but it's worth it. I will put there, you'll see in writing that they're actually all tied for number 7. So Havoc, Bishop, and Apocalypse are all tied number 7. I knew something wasn't making sense to me, and now I know what it is. APOC just happens to be, there was a tiebreaker, and this is where he ended up. And they all have the same amount of points. And this is literally due to 2 reasons. One, he's not available as a 7-star. And so when giving rank up advice, when evaluating these champions, we rank them and we evaluate them at their highest rarity and rank. And he's really good. He's phenomenal. He was, I don't know if they're going to put him out as a 7-star. Honestly, part of me would be very, very surprised. And the other reason is he's not that good in Battlegrounds. He's just not. Even in the metas, like the Tenacity meta, we thought like, oh, we're going to get to use our APOC and think about how he's going to ramp and all these things. And like, it just doesn't materialize. He takes a little bit of time. He was designed with that weakness. He was designed where you needed the synergy with, I think it's Mr. Sinister or Cable, to get him ramped up right away. You could do it in a fight, but it was going to take time, right? And the idea was probably like you might struggle to get him ramped and these sorts of things. Those things combined, when we rate him and we're giving rank up advice, like that's what created these ratings. If you remove Battlegrounds, he goes up the ratings quite a bit. He's phenomenal. He's great. Access to so many different debuffs, can shut down evade, access to immunities that are super, super relevant. And, Cable, I did a lot of videos on Cable. Cable can put out massive damage. Mr. Sinister is a fantastic champion. So having a travel partner like Mr. Sinister is a very, very good thing. That team could do a lot. But just neither of them is available as a 7-star. If you're coming up and you happen to like Apocalypse, I think Apocalypse is still very relevant and worthy of ranking, especially if Battlegrounds isn't your thing. You can use them in War, you can use them in Questing, and those are 2 very important modes of this game. The only reason why he moves down is if he doesn't come out as a 7-star anytime soon, and his meta score will just continue to drop for all the reasons we said. Coming in at a tie for the number 5 rating, right? So these are above APOC, Bishop, and Havoc. Is none other than Omega Red. I mean, I remember when the Omega Days stuff came out and the analysis, and I shouted out Steel 22's video. If you have not seen that and you have a 7-star Omega Red and you're like, should I put the 6 zones in? Should I rank? I'm going to link that video. You should go watch it. This is an actual like Omega Red expert analyzing this all for you. Phenomenal video, great channel. So I want to make sure I get that out there. Especially in light of, I'm not an Omega Red player. There is a style of playing Omega Red that just, it has never worked for me. It's like, I call it the short parry. I think that's the right term. But you essentially parry your block. And then when you parry, you literally don't move backwards. You'll see most players, I know I am like this too. I land the parry and then I move back and then I wait for the defender to come in. It helps me time the parry. But players like Slaymon, Lizer, right? These are some of the bigger names that we've seen who do a lot of great Omega Red gameplay. And I know there's more. I'm sorry. The names are just skipping my mind right now. And I apologize for that. But they do this and they run the recoil tree and the opponents just melt. I can almost like in my head hear Liza saying, we're going to lock in the spores like she does in her videos, right? With the heavy and those sorts of things. This is a phenomenal champion. I little surprised he even came as a 7-star, but he was someone who almost necessitates or needs that high sig. Well, it came out in the Mega Days where you could use your signature sounds. So I thought that was really smart and very cool of Kabam to put those together for people. He can get around damage back mechanics. And he can start turning off the shrug and things like that. He can even go unblockable. And Steel's also done videos talking about you can run him without the recoil tree if that's what you're looking to do. I really valued this champion. I'm personally not doing tier 1 war anymore. I still love those videos and I still have a lot of friends in tier 1 war. So I take in, this is one of the reasons we have the Illuminati and their opinions and things like that. He's not for me. I put my 6 stones into my 7 star, but he's still sitting at rank 1. And if I get interested in playing him, he'll be ready to go when that time happens. I also can't deny his power. And now that he's out as a 7 star, the only way he falls down is due to meta. If more and more champions with his sort of utility and also his damage come out. And I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. All right, let's move on to who he's tied with for the number 5 spot. It's none other than my girl Domino. I mean, I've been putting out videos on her so much. I think y'all are getting tired of seeing it. And I get it. I just enjoy her so much. And I enjoy showing her off, right? Because it's all this, it's the joke. And I even played off this joke in the video where it's like, it's always someone else's Domino that gets crazy lucky. And I talked about that and I showed it in the video, like, you don't always get lucky. You don't. There's things you can do. You can keep your combo going, things like that to help it out, but still. Now, I also talked about the relic, and we've been doing those relic guides, and that, in my opinion, is tremendously helpful to getting bonkers damage out of her and ending fights so quick. If it wasn't for Battlegrounds, her score would not be up this high. She would not be rated this high. But Battlegrounds is another very important mode in the game, a great way to spend your time playing the game, have some fun, and get some good rewards for it. She's a 10 out of 10 dual threat. She's like Photon for me, like one of the best dual threat champions in the game. Probably a little bit better defender, not as reliable as an attacker, but still. I love her. I was shocked they put her in the game as a 7-star. I thought for sure we were done with crit fail, but she was one of the first. She's great. You can run her with the Trinity team, the Domino Trinity. I've done a video on that as well, and it brings along one of my favorite skill champions in MCoC. It's good for MCoC as well, and Red Hulk. She can get massive, massive bleed damage numbers. She's not the best quester, but she's a lot of fun. And she is unique in the mutant class, or what our current day mutant class is, because she doesn't need prowess or things like that, and she has bleeds. I love her. She's great. If you love Battlegrounds, she's almost like a necessity rank. If you don't love Battlegrounds, I wouldn't rate her nearly as high. If you enjoy playing her, go for it. If not, that's fine. She's out as a 7-star. She has massive damage capabilities. I do not see her moving down unless something happens with Battlegrounds. And I think it's pretty clear. Battlegrounds is not going anywhere. All right, in an actual tie for the number 2 spot for Mutants, we have a 3-way tie, and it's starting off with Sunspot. And, you know, I've been talking about how a lot of these champions are like 1 point apart, 1 point apart. It's very close. This actually represents a jump of 2 points, which is a lot in my tier list. It is a lot. I think this is another example of what Battlegrounds has done to the game in champion evaluation. And it's a reason why the spreadsheet wizards made it so you could configure the sheet without Battlegrounds, because I know not everyone loves it. Now, one of the reasons Sunspot is so high and higher than Domino is because he's great outside of Battlegrounds as well. Terrible defender. You almost never use him. Maybe there's a meta or a node set where you'll use him. But I started noticing in Act 8, because there was a lot of nodes where like, we need debuffs. You want debuffs. You want debuffs. It's like, I know who's got a lot of debuffs. It's this guy. He's got a ton of them. And then things accentuating like power or special damage or prowess or these sorts of things. He's phenomenal for it. He has a perfect block mechanic. And then he has the thing that I'm constantly talking about this channel, where if a champion has it, they've got my interest. Be like, you got my interest. Is if they have a power gain mechanic, right? Because this helps you just get through so many problems. It helps the flow score of a champion. Sunspot has a phenomenal flow. Now, he is easy to play, but this is different than that too. Because if he didn't have the power gain mechanic from holding the heavy and getting the incinerates off, right, he would still be easy to play, but his flow score wouldn't be as high. This is the champion that can get to his power, or get to his special, get to his damage more quickly, because he's able to gain power faster than he otherwise would. I do not see him moving down, especially because Battlegrounds is a thing. He can go outside of his class wheel. In fact, let me know if you would like to see this. I don't know if everyone realizes how good he is against champions who are Incinerate immune. I'm thinking people don't know that in general. I'm sure some of you do. Because I have recorded a series of fights that I think are eye-popping and interesting, and people might learn from, where he's taking champions who are immune to Incinerate, and he does a great job of it. I've just done a lot of I've done a lot of Sunspot videos, and I know he's been in the game since 2019. So everyone might not want to see them. Let me know. I think the only way he moves down is just if other banger like mutant champions come out and they're great for battlegrounds and they're great for questing and they're great for war. If that happens, he'll move down slightly. But this guy, I would be shocked is if he's not on the top 10 list when we do this, not only in December of this year, but in June of next year. Again, tied at number 2 with Sunspot and one other champion. This is like, could not exemplify more how much the game has evolved in the last few years. Battlegrounds being part of it and 7 stars being the other part. This has been a constant theme in the 2023 rankings, the 2024 in Mutants, and it's going to be a theme throughout the rest of them. I know it will be because I talk about it in every single monthly tier list. I talk about it in the best champions to ascend, the best 7 stars to rank. It's something I want you all to be thinking through. We've been talking about this literally since the day 7 stars came in the game, even before when I was talking about rank up advice was, if they're not out as a 7 star, there is a limited window on them. Now, we don't know who's coming as a 7 star, but she was one of the champions I told you. I would be shocked if we ever see her as a 7 star. She's, in my opinion, broken, right? You often hear me talk about the difference between broken and OP. I think of OP as being good, broken, fun, good, powerful, but maybe not good for the game. And I think Kabam has shown us, like with Magic and Quake, they're not interested in evolving those characters or bringing them out in the highest variety. As a result, I don't think she's coming as a 7 star. If you really enjoy her, I think she's one of the best Ascension ranks in the game because she is incredibly powerful. Her synergies with Ghost and Tigra, who also happen to be some of the most powerful, one broken, one OP champions in the game, also not available as 7 stars, are also very good and just make her that much more fun to play and effective. I did so many Kitty Pryde videos early in. I got her. I loved playing her. She was so much fun. She was even a decent defender for a period of time, but then we figured out how to fight her. I'm not going to claim I was the first person in the game to learn how to fight her, but I know I was one of the first people for Loki to really figure out, get used to it. I showed you that so many times over again via war videos and things like that. She can still trip you up, and she's a very good attacker. What's happened, though, is there are these other mutant attackers that have the versatility that the skill attackers are asking us, the skill defenders are asking us to have. We've pretty much covered all of them already, but because of her power in war, if played well, and in questing, again, if played well, and I know people can do great things with her in Battlegrounds, she is holding on. But like we said, the theme of the 7 stars, as time goes on, if she doesn't come, if 7-star rank 3s become more and more prominent, if questing continues to say, like, you want to bring your 7 stars, then she's going to fall down, and she will continue to fall down due to meta, because the champion herself will stay the same. She's great. She's phenomenal. If you love playing her, rank her, get as much play out of her as you can. I do think her time is limited, and it's because I don't think she's coming as a 7. All right, the final champion tied for number 2 in the mutant class is none other than Archangel. And I could do like a 4-hour video series of the case study of Archangel, right? The rise and fall and rise, and now maybe it's starting to be the fall of Archangel. I won't take up all that time now, but what I will say is, came into the game incredibly powerful. Well, people didn't realize it at first, and then eventually realized how powerful it is. Shutting off nodes, shutting off defenders, shutting off just literally everything. And then the game started growing, and more champions had either a bleed resistance or a poison resistance. And in Alliance War, the map was hidden. So you didn't know. You were very scared to like send Archangel in because he may run into a lane. You may send them to a fight where the defender was going to have one of those 2 resistances, and then you had problems because there was nothing else you could do. But then the nodes stopped being hidden, and the game grew. And as a result, that started being a thing where like, oh, Incinerate is resistance, Cold Snap immunity, right? All these different immunities and resistances came into the game, or poison resistance, poison or bleed resistance. So you could still land it, which is all he really cared about, and you could get your neuros up. Well, Flash forward to now, right? And this rise and fall and then rise of Archangel. And this is literally the number 2 ranked champion in Mutant. So far from falling off a cliff, of course. But in Battlegrounds, which is part of what it continued the rise and prominence of this champion and the reason to rank them up, we're starting to see 7-star rank 3s. It's taken them a while. We're seeing a lot of crit resistance. It's taken them a while. We're seeing champions with like bleed or poison immunity, like we talked about. The health pools, him not being available as a 7-star. These things are starting to work against him. This is almost the exact same speech or talk I just gave against Pretty Pie, so I won't repeat all of it. But take all of that about, I don't think they're coming as a 7-star. I do think today, anyway, more broken than OP Archangel is, because the ability just to turn everything off, all threats of a fight or of a defender. Kabam is adding on like plus ability accuracy and the inability to reduce the inability accuracy of a node or things like that, but it's not enough to shut down Archangel. I think if we don't see him as a 7-star, I think probably next year he's not, or in December of this year, probably not tied for number 2. And if we continue to not see him as a 7-star, I would almost guarantee that in June of next year, when we do these top 10s, you will not see Archangel nor Kitty Pryde at tied for the number 2 spot. All right, let's get to number 1. It's none other than the big bad daddy himself. I love Onslaught. And, you know, Onslaught was the first champion that I covered where I wanted to remind the community that I thought there was a chance they might get rebalanced down. We had kind of gotten used to the idea that that wouldn't happen. I knew people were going to come out, wanted to be opening crystals, grind arena, and that sort of thing. I just wanted to remind everyone. And in the video, I think I said it was like 51%, you know, and definitely as we played him more, as I played him more, I was like, I don't think he's getting rebalanced down, not as an attacker. I'm actually getting better at fighting him as a defender. The Spring of Sorrow fight wasn't too bad. It was just a big Onslaught. Shouting out Steel 22, again, did a great video on how to evade Onslaught's SP1. So I'm actually just going to link Steel's channel, and you can go and find these videos. They're very good. The damage possibilities, if you're fighting a defender who is shrugging, a node or a defender shrugging, are immense. And could be maybe even a bit of a nuke. I have a 7-star who I recently awakened with outrageous Titan luck. We showed that a while ago. That I will be taking to rank 3. Absolutely, without a doubt. One of the best defenders in the game, even if you know how to fight him, because the special one just takes time. The health pool is relatively large. And as of right now, there's some almost completely unavoidable damage with the I think they're called neurotoxins, or you know what I'm talking about. Neurotoxins is actually Archangel. Able to get around nodes, right? Like get back at it and things like that. Great pure defender, probably the best pure defender in the Mutant class. Domino is a different version of that. So some people might say it's her. And then all of those passives. So not quite Negasong Teenage Warhead, but the ability to get around a lot of the classic skill defensive mechanisms. The only reason I'm not shouting more praise is because I actually struggle using Onslaught a little bit personally, because he does turn off so many things. I often forget that he doesn't turn off a few things. And so I'll get into a fight and I just kind of forget. And then it ruins my ramp, or I make a mistake and now I've taken some hits. He still ends up winning the fight, but in Battlegrounds, I've now made a mistake and I end up losing the round because of it. Phenomenal champion. I will be very surprised. I will be very surprised. And remind me of this next year in June, if he's still not number 1 next year in June. And I will be shocked if he's not number 1 in December of this year. I don't see Onslaught going anywhere. If he loses the number 1 perch, it's like falling to number 2 or number 3. As usual, let me know what you think we got right. Let me know what you think we got wrong. Make sure you check out, I'll link the playlist too, so you can make sure you catch all the top 10s, top 15s for June. We've already done 2023. We've already done 2024. We're going to cover every single class, and we're going to go over the top 30 in the whole game. And as long as I can get them done before I head on this vacation, we're going to go over best champions to ascend, best champions to rank up, 7 stars, and of course, the best champions to awaken and sig up. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.